Peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters. This is AC coming to you live from the belly of the beast. I was watching the news the other day, and they had a headline that reads, "A journalist becoming too woke." This term woke has never really meant much to me because I personally believe that no one was ever asleep in the first place. The issues of social injustice have been an issue since the first landing of the slave trade. This mistreatment of people of color has been apparent since the abolishment of slavery. The rights of people of color have been challenged since the civil rights movement, and the killings of unarmed people of color have been happening throughout the history of America. So let me ask, how are you just now being woke? How could you say that you were never asleep? I find it more disrespectful to say that you are just now waking up to the sound of people of color being mistreated and killed than if you were to just say that you were too scared to speak out against it. You are not woke. You have just finally gained some courage or have developed the fear of retaliation or developed a fear because of retaliation. Can you be too woke? There's no such thing. You are either aware or you are playing ignorant. It no longer makes sense to say that you had no idea that all these events were happening around you, and yet you have all of a sudden become sensitively loath to take an action against what you feel is wrong. It didn't just become wrong, people. The mistreatment of people of color have always been wrong. Do you think that people of color woke up saying, today would be a great day to be at the wrong end of the gun, or but I wouldn't mind being harassed today because of the color of my skin? I've heard some so-called historians speak to the fact that early slaves became complacent with their circumstances and found it easier to just accept their fate. So let me ask you this. What would you do if you were outnumbered and shipped to an unknown land and told either do this or you die? It was not complacency, my friends. It was outright fear to control the minds and the actions of those that fell victim to the slave trade and treatment. People would say, well, black people sold black people into slavery, and so how is it the fault of white people if their own people were doing it? Wrong is wrong, and there is no justification for the treatment of the slaves. But let's talk about after slavery. People tend to forget about that whole part of history as well. When people of color started to become citizens of this country, or should I say, trying to become citizens of this country, and we're still treated as less than human beings. Let's talk about the Jim Crow laws that the government used to keep people of color in a disenfranchised position. Let's talk about how it took the civil rights movement in order to be able to have a voice. Let's talk about how our recent history depicts unarmed people of color being shot down by police officers. Is that a direct result for Africans selling Africans into slavery? I would think not. I would think that is the fascist system utilizing its own privilege to be able to enslave people's minds and thought processes still to this day. That is of their own accord. That has nothing to do with the fact that people were sold and bought back in the early 1800s and brought to this country. They are now in this country still being treated the same. This is the action of those people in power, our government. Let's talk about how urban communities have minimum funding for school districts or even road repairs. Let me take it back to the original statement. Can journalists be too woke? The answer is no. The mainstream media wants you to believe that being woke or too woke is a bad thing, when in fact they're not woke. They're just no longer afraid to speak out against what is wrong. It is time for more people to no longer be willingly ignorant to what society has created to be a norm. And now the people are speaking out. The establishment, or should I say the government, is afraid that they will lose their once tight grasp on the realities of the people. We can no longer allow the narrative to be controlled by this draconic government and have us devalue our morals and our innate pull to know what is right and what is wrong. We must be the soldiers on the front lines and continue to fight this racist and fascist government and prove that no one will ever sleep. They have just decided that they can no longer ignore the screams of the disenfranchised. People of color have constantly been trying to iterate to individuals that we are the victims. But it doesn't mean that we are taking a victim stance. No, we are speaking out against God, which has been wronging us for the last 300 years. We're speaking out against those that want to devalue the word racist and racism by adding it to the other ideals or to the other ways of thinking, and then trying to dilute what it really means to be a racist or to have racism in your heart. We are in a racist society. We are in a racist America. And it will always be a racist society in a racist America until the tables have become even killed. We don't want separate but equal. That's what you wanted. And now you're trying to reprogram that into our minds for us to believe that that is what we want. Don't fall for the tricks, people. We aren't going to go for the idea that they want us to go for. We're not going to have our minds construed and twisted into a thought process where they feel that we'll ask for what they want us to have in the first place. It's our old psychology trick. Make them believe it was their idea. Well, it's not our idea. Our idea is that we want to be treated equally as human beings. We want to be able to be seen as human beings. We want to be able to know that when we speak, our voice is being heard. And when we ask for justice, that justice isn't spelled with a dollar sign. It is justice for what it is. And that people are being brought to justice for any wrong acts towards people in general. We have no problem with locking up people of color and putting them in prison for a crime they commit. But it seems like they have a real issue when our counterparts commit a crime, and because they are hiding behind a badge or some place of authority, they're able to pay or swindle or talk their way out of it because they have financial backing. Financial backing should no longer be a tool used to be able to help people escape the true justice in which they deserve. At one point where we recognize that this is not justice, but this is a system that is being bought and money moved in and out to only benefit one side of the spectrum. If we want justice, have it be justice for all. If we want change, have it be change for all. Don't do it when it's convenient. Don't backtrack a statement because enough people realized what you were saying and really was able to pinpoint where you were coming from with it, and it was coming from a racist motive. It is our time to now take the reins back and to let people know you are not woke. You are now aware and no longer afraid to be able to be that soldier on the front line and say, this is wrong. At the end of the day, wrong is wrong. I encourage you, my brothers and sisters, go out there and prove those fascists in that government that you will no longer be the puppet for these puppet masters, that you will no longer allow for them to think for you, and you will no longer allow for them to be able to control your actions by instilling fear inside of you to not want to say out or speak out against what is wrong. It doesn't matter who is on the wrong side of wrong. They need to be brought out, and they need to have justice brought to them. This is AC telling you to keep fighting and educating because we still have a long road ahead of us. Peace.